Hello, everyone. I'm Adrian Sanabria, host of the Enterprise Security Weekly podcast and principal researcher at the Defenders Initiative. Welcome to this webcast sponsored by Fortinet and Google. I have two guests with me today, Mr. Tony Allegrati, Regional Cloud Systems Engineer at Fortinet. How are you doing, Tony?
I'm doing well today. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. It's rainy outside, but I have my fake lighting in here, making it feel sunny and happy.
Well, it feels warm and welcoming. I think that's all our audience wants to see.
Yep. And also with us, we have David Zhao, Partner Engineering Lead, Google Cloud. How are you doing, David?
I'm doing good. How are you, Andrew?
Good, good. It looks sunny where you're at also, whereas Tony is in a dimly lit data center.
Yeah, this is actually a fake background. I don't want
Yeah.
everybody to see my, little home office. Yeah, but here I'm based in Seattle, and today is a little bit, I would say, raining on and off. Just a typical day in Seattle, I guess.
Yep. Yeah, where I am in Tennessee, we have similar weather. So I feel you. Our whole winter is 50 degrees and rain.
Yeah.
All right. So today we're talking about building secure and scalable cloud infrastructure with Fortinet and Google Cloud. And if you have a question during this webcast, you can select the Q&A button below. There's also a chat button down there where you can chat with the other attendees or ask questions there as well. All right, let's get into it. So Tony, starting with you, how does the partnership between Fortinet and Google Cloud simplify security across hybrid and multi-cloud architectures, particularly given the increased complexity and visibility challenges that people have in these environments?
What a great question, and I think we could probably spend the entire 50 minutes or whatever that we're trying to do to cover that. But let me try to cover some of the highlights for that. Right, first off is really around visibility. One of the things that we've done with a lot of our partnership is making sure that even though typically folks think of Fortinet as being kind of an on-prem product, we've moved those on-prem products into a cloud environment, and we want to make sure that they feel very cloud native or very cloud natural, I think is really a better term for it. I think the word cloud native has gotten a little bit overused in these days because there's so many great companies out there that may not have started in the cloud, but have done such a great job of adopting into the cloud. And I really feel that's where we focus on that, right? So, for example, when we start talking about visibility, it's really important to be able to make sure that we address cloud the way cloud needs to be. So, for example, dynamic objects are a really great way to be able to go through and look at that, right? I don't want to do the old way of doing things where I'm trying to do static IP addresses because we know everything in cloud is drastically changing quickly and in a dynamic environment. So one of the things that we've done across pretty much our entire platform is making sure that we're able to take the API integrations that we call our fabric integrations from the Fortinet ecosystem, right? And in particular, that's our next generation firewalls or our web application servers or some of those other things. Taking those dynamic objects to a way that you can go ahead and say, hey, I don't necessarily care what the IP space looks like behind here. What I want to be able to do is use these objects that Google has defined. And I think if you look at a lot of the best practices for that, we want to make sure that we're taking that capability and being able to use that with inside of there, right? So now what that visibility looks like is we're not trying to take these stale static IP addresses or anything else like that, but we're really giving customers the visibility of defining a policy or a posture based off of those dynamic objects. Now that's on kind of a more protective piece. We certainly do have other things with our cloud native applications like our CNAP. And our CNAP is really meant for just that, right? Taking advantage of the API structure that Google gives to their cloud partners like us and being able to give the customers a better view of what's going on in their cloud environment. So whether or not we're talking, hey, what does it look like from just an overall ecosystem? Like, what am I doing in cloud? And when I say what am I, a lot of our customers really struggle because it's like, hey, so-and-so stood this up, right? So the DevOps team stands this up, the security team needs to be able to give visibility into that. So one of the things that we also do is with things like our CNAP product, we go ahead and pull in integrations from Google where they allow us to easily be able to identify what's going on without an agent. Of course, we do have agents for better options, but we want to make sure that we have those visibilities in there. So I think that's two kind of really key things is just taking advantage of a lot of the native API integrations or the native integrations in order to be able to make sure that our customers have that visibility, but not just that visibility, but the ability to be able to create security posture based off of the way they need to be able to do it in the cloud.
And David, I imagine from your perspective, it's important that Fortinet customers who are also Google Cloud customers can benefit from the a lot of Tony was talking about is making sure you still have the flexibility and the ability to scale. That is the whole point of using the cloud, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So, I think what Tony just mentioned, all those flexibilities, all those options that the Fortinet customers can have. I think from a Google Cloud perspective, we give our customers and our partners like Fortinet a lot of options. From a networking perspective, just take an example. So we have different connectivity options, for customers who is operating in the multi-cloud or with their own data center. So for example, we have Cloud VPN, we have interconnect, we have network connectivity center. Of course, we also have like something called a private service access, which if the customer prefer to access Google service, some of the services leveraging their internal IP instead of going out with their external IP. That's something Google Cloud also offers. So that's the flexibility there. And also, I wanted to just double click on the scalability. Customers and partners like Fortinet building and running their applications and leveraging Google Cloud can certainly take advantage of the scalability, so they can, of course, scale up and down, their workloads as needed. And then also leveraging the highly available architecture, such as, leveraging different availability zones to do things, and also leveraging some of the load balancers capabilities, so they can, have this very highly available and very scalable load balancer in front of whatever the workload they are running. Right. That's I think some of the things that I would like to highlight for Google Cloud, and how this can benefit any customer who's using Google Cloud, and also using Fortinet products. So that's one. A second, I just wanted to double click on GCP Marketplace. So GCP Marketplace, or we call it Google Cloud Marketplace. Really, it is a one-stop shopping kind of experience for any customer, right? So it gives the customer the end-to-end procurement experience, as well as the flexibility, I guess. So they can, let's say, choose the right version of, let's take FortiGate firewall as an example, right? They can choose the right payment model, and then the right version, whichever fits best, in the customer's use case. And then also the marketplace gives the customer a centralized visibility and management across their whole entire deployment in their Google Cloud. So the last thing I wanted to just quickly touch upon, is the Google networking point of presence. So, or we sometimes refer to as POP, right? So that really gives some customers the best in class kind of end-to-end networking experience from a performance and latency perspective. And then many customers really enjoy this feature on Google Cloud. So I think just summarizing some of those features that Google Cloud can also provide to our customers as a platform.
Yeah, and very interesting about the procurement bit there. The marketplace. I think that's something we don't hear mentioned enough here, but that flexibility is really important.
Yeah, I can add to that real quickly. The marketplace
for
us has definitely been one of the more successful ways for our customers to execute. And I think the key thing that David kind of mentioned there is, it's not just a way for me to go through procurement, but it's a way for me to get what really is considered the right version of the software from a given security provider like Fortinet, for example. I got to be honest, I feel like our Google Marketplace listings have gone so big that when I started, it was probably a handful. And I don't know, the last time I looked, there's probably 15 or 20 or more listings. And it feels like we're always adding more and more capabilities on there, or more product sets. But really the key thing there is that's at customer demand, right? The customers are really driving to the fact that it's an easy way for them to go out and do a catalog of what has been vetted on Google Marketplace, right? Rather than going out and going and saying, hey, said vendor says they work on Google, being able to put it out on Marketplace means that you put some commitment through it. And what we've seen is a large growth of Marketplace, both as a procurement engine, but just as a way to people to validate that they're getting that right type of software that they need to be able to do. And it really, truly is, as I kind of mentioned early on, right, cloud ready. And I think that's kind of very important for our customers. So Marketplace has been a great avenue for us to make sure that we're continuing to deliver the right type of product to our customers.
Yeah. Yeah, I imagine it can remove bottlenecks from projects as well. Like nobody wants their project to be halted because they're waiting for a license to go through procurement, right?
Just adding to also, what Tony just mentioned, I think, Marketplace is such a great way for a customer to, launch Fortinet products. I mean, all the products there. And then one of the reasons is, I think, Google Cloud, work closely with Fortinet to kind of validate their new offerings and make those new products and new offerings available on Marketplace on a continuous basis. I think that's also, I think that's, for most of our customers, I would argue all of our customers, they all want some peace of mind, saying, hey, anything on Google Cloud Marketplace, that is validated by both Google Cloud and Fortinet, right? For Fortinet products, and it confirmed that it will work, nicely in their in the customer environment. That's also what customers love to hear.
Yeah, very good point, David. And Tony, I think David already mentioned FortiGate. I think it might help to have some examples here. Like what are customers using from Fortinet within Google Cloud?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And again, as I kind of mentioned, I can't even keep up with how much we've moved other product sets up into Marketplace, and there's so many things that we can do. But if I really had to boil it down, for the sake of stage one, stage two, and then probably an overreaching stage on it, what I'm typically seeing a lot of my customers looking for is, folks typically think of Fortinet as being a FortiGate, right? We've been in that next generation firewall space for a very long time, and we've helped mature that market in many ways, shape, or form, right? I would go as far as to say we've kind of helped define that in some way, shape, or form or another, right? And so what I typically see from a customer, kind of first steps when they're moving into Google, and it does change a little bit whether or not they're an existing Fortinet customer or not, but overall, we see that customers like to put the FortiGate in, and that's usually our first touch point into a lot of our cloud space. And the reason for that is it offers so many things very quickly, right? So first off and foremost, think about me as being a customer, right? So my first step is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to onboard Google. So what I want to make sure is that I'm connecting or I'm on-ramping onto Google in some sort of secure way. And maybe I want to make it easier for my end customers and not necessarily always going through a console or things of that nature, right? Simply by using our FortiGates as part of their on-ramp, their cloud on-ramp process, where I have a FortiGate with our advanced SD-WAN capabilities on-prem. Well, isn't it great to know that the FortiOS is able to extend that same bit? So instead, what we're doing is helping customers make Google just another data center for them, right? Keeping the complexity out of it from a networking perspective overall. And the thing I think that reason it catches on so quickly is then all of those next generation firewall features that you're used to thinking about from a FortiGate perspective, be it IDS, IPS, or outbound inspection and things of that nature is there. But what we can do now is with that same FortiGate, we can implement that not only as a cloud on-ramp point, but we can also implement that as being east-west inspection. So I want to make sure from a security perspective that I'm monitoring traffic that is going from inside my cloud to inside my cloud, just as much as I want to monitor what's going in and out of it, right? And so being able to make sure that we're looking for intrusion protection, signatures, and things of that nature across your cloud is very important. And it's great for customers because they simply deployed this cloud on-ramp FortiGate, and now they have this east-west inspection that they can go ahead and do. And then what happens next is they're like, oh, I wish I could do this for northbound, north-south. And our answer is You absolutely can, depending on whether or not you're doing a centralized hub. And David had talked about us already integrating with so many of their kind of configured architectural designs. But in the short of it is we can do outbound inspection. So if we need to make sure that, for example, you're not making a call out, or rather maybe one of the developers or one of the service administrators aren't making a call out to a malicious site. We want to make sure there's no CNC calls in going outbound on that, right? That outbound inspection is really important to be able to make sure that you're validating that the websites or URLs or the pulls that you're going through are really going to something that's validated and not a security concern. And then we can take that same piece and we can do it inbound, right? Now, the FortiGate itself from an inbound perspective is really kind of all ports, all protocols. So what I see naturally from our customers next is that they want to take that HTTPS type of traffic and they want to put that under a microscope. Now, for us, what that means is that's a product we call FortiWeb, which is also executable right on the Google Marketplace, can be delivered as either software as a service model or a VM. So it's very flexible to be able to go through and do that. And we deliver the software as a service model so that there's little to no latency from a Google perspective, because we actually move what we call our scrubbing centers within GCP so we can give that. But what that gives them the capability of doing is not only looking at 443 under a microscope, but public-facing APIs are now becoming a bigger and bigger concern as we're seeing the traffic shift from being, pure HTTPS to being a mix of either web API for business to business or web API for mobile, or even web API for web perspective of that, right? So being able to leverage our FortiWeb for things like OS Top 10 and bot mitigation and things of that nature, and then leveraging the machine learning with inside of there, that's been number two for us a long time because it's really a natural progression. And then I think, just to tie it up as one more product set that we have that kind of falls overall encompassing of that is what we've done recently with our FortiCNAP, which was part of the Lacework acquisition that we recently just did, is giving that complete visibility across that entire board. So, right, whether or not we're talking about other product sets, there certainly are a lot in there, but when we focus on just our entry level point, it's usually that network. So that network is that north, south, east, west, as well as that on-ramp that I mentioned, as well as putting that 443 under traffic, under scrutiny or a microscope, if you will, and then just giving people complete visibility from code to build is what we're code to deploy, is what we start talking about with our FortiCNAP program, which has been really popular. So those are probably the three top movers that we're seeing in Google Marketplace. There's certainly a lot of other products that we could spend a ton of other time on. And I encourage folks to take a look at the Google Marketplace for Fortinet just to give an idea of what that catalog looks like.
Great. Yeah, and David, can you provide some perspective from the Google side on how Google Cloud Services also integrate with these products?
Right. Google Cloud, we have, as a platform, right, we have a lots of services that some of the customers will choose to use. So we actually had completed a number of deeper integrations with Fortinet products, I believe, so just give a few examples, right? And then all of those integrations are made available and because customer wants it. Customer we're asking for it, right? So, for example, like FortiEDR, Tony talked about a lot about FortiGate, right? So Fortinet has a very comprehensive product portfolio, from a security and networking perspective. So take FortiEDR and then FortiXDR as an example, right? These products, they integrate with Google Cloud Security Command Center. So Security Command Center is Google's native offering for posture management and things like that. So, and that integration allows the auditing and then correlation of threat detection, prevention, incidents, that are associated with Google Cloud assets, and EDR can also take advantage of that product to send its own alerts and findings, so that any customer who's using Security Command Center will have the single pane of glass to make sure, and then they have this peace in mind that all the findings, alerts from the EDR and XDR products are also fully integrated, right? That's one example, I think. Another example would be FortiGate, right? So it natively integrates with Google Cloud and Network Connectivity Center. So I think Tony already touched upon this, right? This whole experience, the whole integration can simplify the cloud on-ramp for applications and workloads running on Google Cloud. And then also another example would be Terraform. So, some of the marketplace offering, right? The Fortinet marketplace offering leverage Terraform to allow their the customers to automatically deploy the FortiGate workloads into their environment automatically in a very scalable fashion. So these are just some of the examples, but we have, I guess, okay, actually one more. Fortinet has a fantastic product called a FortiCM and FortiSOAR, right? So that's from a threat detection and response perspective. So these products are actually integrated also with a Google cloud product called Google Security Operations. So it's formerly known as Chronicle. Now the new name is Google Security Operations. So that means the security findings and those security events from SIEM can be seamlessly integrated into security operations and for customers to leverage. And also, it is even possible to get some of the signals and events from Google Cloud Security Operations, and then the FortiSOAR can then take actions on the Fortinet on the Fortinet side for their customers. For example, like it's even possible to detect something, and then FortiSOAR can then possibly do an action says, hey, this action looks suspicious. Let's put a temporary firewall rule on such and such until and a further investigation is done. Right? We've seen customers leveraging this capabilities on the Fortinet side as well. So just people, yeah.
FortiSOAR, if you don't mind me jumping in there, has been great. So really what that is that automated playbook capability that's went inside of there really gives the capability. And as David kind of mentioned, what it does is it pulls in so many signals from so many different places, including some of the native Google signals that we want to be able to see, right? Because they have visibility in places that are very valuable, and you're kind of silly to not look at the signals that you're getting from the cloud provider to begin with, right? So if Google is saying something, you're kind of silly to turn a blind eye to it. So one of the things that SOAR does is pulls in all of that information, but then allows you to be able to build these automated playbooks, right? What we don't want to do is see the same thing over and over again done manually. So building these playbooks to be able to do responses and then maybe even automating some of those as mentioned has been a very valuable piece to that. And then I think the other part that I love that David brought up that I probably was remiss in is the Terraform templates that we keep up with and maintain have been one of the biggest selling points for our product is the fact that customers don't want to do it from scratch, right? So for example, when we build a FortiGate, we build them in an active passive mode for a lot of our customers. There's a lot of steps. It's all documented. It's up there. It's probably 15 or 20 steps in order to be able to do that. What we do for our customers to make it easy is we've done all that heavy lifting, right? You tailor that Terraform template to fit into your network design, but we take care of configuring all of the network interfaces to be able to make sure that what we call our Fortinet clustering protocol works so that the synchronization between FortiGates are done. So all of the heavy lifting is done, and we do that particularly to make it so that our customers really have a good foundation when they're building inside of there, because there's nothing more frustrating than reading through manuals for 15 or 20 hours sometimes in order to be able to understand, like, how was I supposed to make this work? And so I'm going to take one of my famous Homer Simpson quotes that I've always loved throughout the years. Can't somebody else do it? And I think the answer there is, yeah, absolutely. We've done a lot of that heavy lifting for our customer, and that integration is great. So yes, somebody else can do it sometimes. And by the way, we've done it because we've heard our customers ask that.
Yeah, very appropriate given, we're talking about deploying this stuff into the cloud to take out those bottlenecks, those kinds of things that might traditionally slow you down. Yeah, so really good point there, Tony. So Tony, you've already touched on some of this, but how does Fortinet enhance perimeter and endpoint security for cloud, Google Cloud deployments? What kind of advantages do customers see managing large-scale distributed enterprises here? You've already talked a bit about inspecting traffic and some of that, but maybe dip into that a little bit more.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest common misperceptions in my mind, and I'm I'm a little biased. I work here and I've been here for many years, is the fact that I think most customers think of Fortinet as being a next generation firewall company that does all of these other things. And I challenge a lot of my customers and I say, what we really are is a security company. And here's why. One of the biggest, I'm going to say, product lines, development, departments, however you want to have, or whatever you want to call it, inside of Fortinet is actually something called FortiGuard Labs. FortiGuard Labs is our threat intelligence resource. And why I say that this is probably the most important piece in Fortinet is, first off and foremost, it's the one service that we have within Fortinet that touches every single Fortinet product, right? And what I mean by that is whether or not they're writing an IDS IPS signature for their next generation firewall, or whether or not they're writing what looks like an attack inside of the FortiEDR that David brought up, or whether or not they're writing in new rule sets for bot detection or upgrading our machine learning and AI capabilities within our FortiWeb product, they really do touch on everything else that we have inside of there. So the short answer is many of our customers spend so much time running another business unit that they don't want to write those types of things, right? And the value add to us is being able to leverage FortiGuard Labs in order to be able to go through and make sure we go through and do things. So to your point, now that I've built a little bit of a foundation on the story and rambled on a little bit, what really is kind of the key here for us is think about those things that I've defined already, right? So FortiGate is a next generation firewall. And what that means is we use our IDS IPS signatures, and we use some other things like application control signatures where we can better identify what types of things are going in and out of that firewall. And you can robustly define whether or not you want to allow or not allow those types of things, or whether or not this is some sort of attack, from an example from an IDS IPS, that you want to be able to block because you're going through there. When we started talking about the FortiWeb stuff, right? So the FortiWeb is our next generation, well, I don't want to say next generation. FortiWeb is our web application firewall. And it's actually been called now, I think the term now from Forrester, Gartner, whoever, is web application and API protection. Because as I mentioned before, it's really important to make sure that we're doing more than just 443 type of traffic in there. And one of the funny things is that, the late buzzword is AI and ML. Well, one of the things I can tell you about FortiWeb is we've been doing machine learning and language and deep learning models in FortiWeb since before I was actually on. So right, over 5 years that we've been implementing this type of piece in that. And the biggest piece of the reason for that is it's great to say, hey, OS Top 10 is really important from a web perspective. And I joke, right? OS Top 10 has been out there, and 1 and 2 have been SQL injection and cross-site scripting for as long as I could remember. And you're like, boy, wouldn't somebody get a handle on this between there? But quite honestly, no, they haven't. And those are very easy things to identify with some basic signatures sometimes. But as attackers are getting more and more efficient at doing their job, right? We've got to make sure that we can do that from a perspective. So we really leverage that FortiGuard Labs to be able to do that. One of the things that we do very heavily, both in our FortiWeb as well as our FortiCNAP, where we kind of identify threats and things of that nature, is leveraging machine learning models for a couple of things. First off is it's great if I turned on something and I gave you 100 alerts or 200 alerts a day. Guess what you're going to do? You're going to shut those alerts off. You're going to shut them down. You shut them down till eventually you have a relatively ineffective tool. So what we want to do is make sure that we're leveraging AI and ML in order to be able to do that at a perimeter piece, that we're giving you things that are relevant to your job and to what are really suspicious, right? And that's going to be a real big key for us in order to be able to do that. So one of the things, for example, we do in FortiWeb is we actually do a 2 learning stage where we identify anomalous traffic, but think about the way that the pipelines work nowadays, right? Is you're changing your application not on a monthly basis or on a quarterly basis. Some of our customers change them on a weekly basis, which that means is about every week there's new anomalous traffic, but that traffic isn't bad. Maybe it is, maybe it's not, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. I don't know. All I know is it's anomalous, right? So what we do is we define what normal is. We allow normal to go through. We define what's anomalous. And then what we do is we put that through a second machine learning model as well as pattern definition to identify whether or not anomalous is because it's new, because the application has been updated, or because it really is a threat vector in some way, shape, or form that we want to be able to do that. So from a perimeter perspective, being able to identify things that are potential threats are important, but being able to make sure that we keep that alert fatigue down to where it's manageable is just as important, because if you have a ton of false positives after a while, right? You're the boy that calls wolf. And after a while, when the wolf is really there and the sheep, nobody pays attention. And next thing you know, you've lost some very valuable assets in your environment. So we want to make sure we focus on that. So that's kind of our approach from a perimeter perspective, is making sure that not only leveraging the FortiGuard Labs, but that FortiGuard Labs is using AI and ML to be able to make sure that we're truly doing the new, latest, and greatest to minimize some of that alert fatigue. So makes sense there?
Yeah. Derek Mankey and his team put out some really good reports, the biannual threat reports for folks listening. If you've never checked those out, very much recommend you check out those reports. A lot of good data in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and David, moving over to you, help me understand maybe the cloud native perspective, what Google Cloud brings to the table in terms of kind of the native security controls, assured workloads, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I think, Google Cloud as a platform, right? We are very big about giving customers all the choices they can have, right? So Google Cloud has some of the, of course, all the platform level security controls from a networking perspective, from data encryption perspective, access control. We have the full, kind of like a full stack and defense in depth kind of concept, right? That's kind of like the security best practices. I think the whole industry, adopt the same concept more or less, right? So beyond that, I think, just double click on some of the other, topics, especially for customers who are operating in a highly regulated industry, like, banks or compliance, for those reasons, right? So some of the customers, they've been asking Google Cloud about, hey, so one common ask is, hey, we want to make sure our data, like customer data, stay in one location and not going anywhere, right? So how does Google Cloud as a platform give them these platform controls? So Google Cloud has a product called Assured Workloads. So Assured Workloads really is a policy-driven framework, and it really gives the customer that level of assurance to meet the customer's compliance requirements, right? So, for example, like HIPAA customers can say, hey, we have to be compliant with HIPAA, so we need to meet all those ABC, those requirements. How can Google Cloud help us achieve that? So, well, Assured Workloads is a platform level, control that can give customer just that. So that is one. And second example would be something called confidential computing. And then I wanted to double click on that because confidential computing is, we have now, the data, if you think from a data security perspective, right? So data in motion, how do we ensure that data in motion is also encrypted and protected? We have all those end-to-end encryption now, and data at rest, right? So also we have all those encryption that make sure all the data, that's in bucket or, in other cloud storage, they're all encrypted using, some keys, whether it's a Google managed key or a customer provided key. Now, customer has another ask, and they said, hey, how do we make sure that our workload, even when the data is running, let's say in a VM, how do we give that level of assurance, saying, hey, the data running in my VM is also protected from a data security perspective? So confidential computing is Google Cloud's answer to that. So that gives confidential computing VM gives the customers a choice, so the customer can launch their VM in having this confidence that everything runs in that VM is protected, even when it's execution, it's running, it's executing in the memory. So double click on that because Fortinet is one of the few customers that make this option available for Google Cloud customers in the marketplace. So meaning today, if any Fortinet customers go to Google Cloud marketplace and then go launch, FortiGate products, right? They have the option to launch directly in confidential computing without any code. Everything is automated. Everything is validated, like Tony said, and do it in a very scalable way, meaning, they have the Terraform, all the great capabilities that's already built in by Fortinet and Google Cloud in Marketplace. That is what's available for a customer today. So I think that's also a great option, for some of the customers.
Yeah, very, very cool technology. I remember the first time I saw confidential computing, like it never occurred to me to even encrypt the data running in RAM. So if you were to dump RAM, you would still get nothing useful, which we know from places like FortiGate or Fortinet Labs that pulling credentials out of memory is a pretty common technique used by attackers.
Yeah.
So Tony, now I want to kind of shift to help me understand. You mentioned FortiGate goes back a long way. I'm sure there are people, and we're talking about hybrid environments here as well. But now we're talking about kind of bringing these worlds together in a hybrid sense. Who are the folks managing, like a FortiGate in Google Cloud, for example? They have to learn how to be a cloud engineer, are these network engineers, like what are the different roles here that come into play from a people perspective?
What an interesting conversation we can have there, because I've been doing cloud. I don't even want to show my age, so I'm not even going to tell you how long I've been doing cloud. I'm just not even aware that cloud was that old until I realized the other day how long I've been doing it. But we've really seen kind of a shift, right? Early on, it was, I always joke, we heard just shadow IT thing where these people were moving these workloads up in the cloud, and it was unsanctioned or semi-sanctioned. So it was these cloud native folks that were running everything in the cloud. But really what we've been seeing in general is that cloud is an adoption, right? Cloud is now a regular staple in every enterprise. So what that means is now it's being accepted by pretty much all of the enterprise piece. So I think that question is who's running it in the cloud really kind of depends on, I'm going to say, how the particular customer or partner or whomever has decided to run that. What I mean by that is what we're starting to see a lot of now is I get a lot of conversations around customers that say, hey, the network admin comes to me and says, I've been running FortiGates forever, and now they told me I'm responsible for doing this new cloud thing. And to your point, Adrian, they're not always cloud engineers, right? This is really weird for them. And then when I have to explain to them, like below layer 4, don't even think about that because it kind of exists, but it kind of doesn't exist. And they're like, whoa, what am I going to do with this? And this is just crazy. Well, the way that we really address that with those folks are that for them, the FortiOS is the FortiOS. So if we have a cloud engineer or we have a network engineer from on-prem that knows the FortiGate, we don't have a different version of the FortiGate on your on-prem. It's the same underlying FortiOS, on-prem or not. So for us, what we're seeing is kind of that hybrid design. Yeah, there certainly are a lot of folks that are cloud native that want to be able to learn that. And the beautiful part about it is we have a ton of APIs and things of that nature because quite honestly, that's where they want to go ahead and do it. They don't want to go into an old web GUI interface and do anything else like that. But because we're starting to see a lot more of the legacy network folks now starting to move to being responsible for cloud, because quite honestly, as I said before, right, it's just another data center to them in many cases. What we're seeing is the ability for us to be able to deliver FortiOS in the exact same way that they're used to consuming that. And by the way, we have management tools that are also available on Google Marketplace, like our FortiManager. You can actually manage your FortiGates on-prem, your FortiGates in the cloud, and maybe some, FortiGate VMs or branch office VMs and things of that capability all through the same management console, which makes it easy for them. But we are certainly starting to see both sides of it, right? The native cloud folks are starting to look at it. And what we need to make sure of is we have extensive API capability for them to be able to do things through code, which is the way that they're delivering. But we're also seeing a lot of times where we're bringing the network folks in. And so those network folks want to be able to do things the way they're doing. And their knowledge, pre-existing knowledge of the FortiGates makes it very easy. Once we tell them, and by the way, it goes back to those Terraform templates, this is how you plug it into cloud, and once you do, you just treat it like another FortiGate. So that's really important as well. And then there's all of that gambit in between. But I definitely think over the last couple of years, probably 4 years, what I'm seeing is more and more the on-prem people are being responsible for part of cloud. And because of that, you've got to make sure that you can walk both sides of it, right? A DevOps, DevSec type of environment where you can do everything through API. And so we have things like what we call our Fortinet Developers Network that helps those folks understand what our API structure that is pretty extensive underneath the covers for FortiOS, or whether or not they want to do it through CLI or GUI, which is the folks that have already done their, NSE trainings for Fortinet or whatever the case would be. So we can walk both sides of it, because what I'm seeing is both sides customers are really starting to be able to do it. And it really just depends on how the particular customer or enterprise or whomever is deploying has kind of decided to address cloud. Are they starting to pull it in as part of their regular data, or are they starting to separate it even more? But I'm certainly starting to see it more of a mold where it can't be addressed as being its own separate space anymore. So security and security operations wants to make sure they have a same view across that. And the separation of duties is pretty invaluable so that we can do that with, multiple user interface logons and things of that nature. So I definitely say it runs the gambit. That's probably, not an easy answer, but the short answer is it really depends on the customer. But making sure you have a product that can allow both sides of the fence, right? Whether it's those typical on-prem people or the cloud native to be able to do what they want to do has been really important for us. And that's where I go back to that cloud ready versus cloud native sometimes, right? Is just as important because, to be cloud native, you had to have been born in the last 6 to 8 years. And there's a lot of companies out there that have been doing this 20 plus that are really good at it.
Yeah, and it's so we've already kind of gotten into some of the other stuff I wanted to talk about. One Fortinet study found that 95% of organizations said they were concerned about cloud security, and one of those key concerns was security products being siloed. So I find it interesting how this then kind of filters down and applies at the admin level, the employee level, the folks running these things. And I imagine there are, you talked about the availability of APIs to automate things. You talked about Terraform infrastructure as code. I imagine there are cases where you want to coordinate changes to your FortiGate products with changes to your Google Cloud environment, right? We talked quite a bit about visibility, but do you see customers doing that, where they find they need to coordinate things in both environments I guess it's all one environment, right? That's the way you have to think about it.
Yeah, we absolutely do. And what that now becomes is now it's just a part of change order process. The bigger problem becomes with the conception, with the perception, I should say, rather, that cloud is harder to get visibility into. How do I know when I've broken that process? What tools are out there that I can validate that maybe a change was made, maybe something else was made on that side, right? So yeah, definitely part of the change order process now. We're starting to see that more and more where cloud is more tightly regulated like what on-prem was, especially in our very large enterprise customers. But what we found success in is things like our CNAP product that allows them the visibility to be able to understand not only what the cloud, not only what's going on, right? So our CNAP product really does focus on threats inside of your environment and identifying threats through some of that AL and MI that we do here. But the other part about that is just simply, what does cloud security posture management look like, right? And I know that's not a new term in any way, shape, or form or another, but what is kind of starting to get new and it becomes interesting, and there is, what is the breadth of cloud security posture management? Before it was, hey, you built some sort of storage or blob storage or whatever you're using out there and you publish it out to the world. Well, that's easy, right? But now we're starting to talk a lot more about what does privilege management look like in cloud, right? So what does that look like? And how to identify when somebody has excessive privileges they don't want to be able to go through and do, because that's as big of a concern. And it goes a little bit off of the path of, what the operational perspective of that looks like, but it certainly becomes a bigger concern as most customers that have a change order process want to make sure that they're locking down privileges. How do you validate that? So utilizing things like our FortiCNAP product has really been a valuable tool for customers to be able to execute on that, because the workflow is different for what they're doing on-prem, right? It's not like I have the same tools for on-prem as cloud. I need to have tools that, again, integrate with these native cloud integrations in order to be able to pull in that visibility. And so that is probably more of the struggle as I go through there and see that.
And speaking of going native, this brings me to one of my favorite stories around the Fortinet and Google partnership is FortiSASE. Since it's important for a SASE product to be accessible and for performant wherever employees might be in the world. This is one of those products that, though it may run in the cloud, it's employee facing, right?
Mm.
You'd want your SASE points of presence to be well distributed as well. So can you tell us a bit about how FortiSASE was built in partnership?
Yeah, I love the FortiSASE story to start talking about a strong partnership and integration. So Adrian, I'll make a reference you may or may not get with that long hair that you get there, right? But when I was younger, there was a commercial that said, I'm not only the president, I'm a client, right? For me, that wouldn't be very good because that was for a hair growth product. But the key thing here is we really truly believe that as well, right? We have looked at a lot of things, but SASE being the really, I'm not going to say the new kid on the block, but new ways to execute cloud on-ramping and other things like that is very extensive. But think about what's involved with that, right? So I have a global footprint, and that means with that global footprint, I've got to be able to execute in a way that I'm as close to as many customers as possible, because one of the biggest things that I want to be able to do is do that in a way that I can touch every customer, and I don't introduce latency, right? I don't want to have somebody in the UK connecting to a POP in Southern California because there's a problem in that. So for us to natively build all of that, think about the data centers, think about the ramp up time, think about this, right? This is exactly what cloud was built for. So with Google, they already have 40 plus regions, and David probably knows these numbers way better than I do. And then with the point of presence that they have outside of there, it makes it even easier. So what we've chosen to do for our customers is execute some of that local point of presence within Google to make us scalable, right? So now what I can do is I can not only do things like, Virginia, right? Virginia, US, popular, right? The typical things of that. But when we start getting into some of the other countries where you want to get closer and closer to your customer for those points of presence breakouts, for the POPs inside of there that David has kind of already mentioned, Google's already built all of this. Why would I want to reinvent the wheel, right? Really focus on what we want to be able to do is let's leverage the backbone of Google in order to be able to do connections closer to our customers with our SASE POPs being executed inside of Google, and then being able to use that extensive backbone that Google has already created to give the customer the end user experience that they want to be able to do. So whether or not that's local internet breakout for doing things like filtering local internet users, or whether or not that's more of a global presence of what I'm going to create my network infrastructure to look like, or delivering things closer to that, that partnership has been there. And so it's also been a great thing for us from a learning tool, right? Because what we are now doing is taking under the covers, it's the FortiOS and a lot of other really neat technologies that we've done to build FortiSASE, if you really understand that. So what it has allowed us to do is flip the switch a little bit, right? Now we are the customer in some aspects of it, and we're running and building those. And what it's doing is actually accelerating some of the needs for the technologies built, for example, within FortiOS or for some of our other products in order to be able to do it. So, right, again, back to that, I'm not only the president, but I'm a client. That really kind of feeds through there. But what we're doing is we're leveraging those huge points of presence for Google, and there's no way that we could have executed and gotten to market anywhere near as fast as we could without being able to do that. And that's exactly why customers are going to Google to begin with, right? So I think it's a great story of talking about being able to say, hey, not only we are partnered with Google, but we are definitely involved with them so much that we're building many of our own workloads with inside of there.
Great stuff. And David, coming to you as we wrap up and kind of share our final thoughts here. How do you see the Fortinet and Google Cloud partnership redefining cloud security standards, and what unique advantages will this bring to customers looking to secure their cloud environments against emerging threats?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, Andrew. And that got me thinking, in the past year or so, I think, everybody in the industry has been talking about security, but also the hot topic about Gen AI. And many people, customers are asking like how we should think about this emerging threats in the context of, Gen AI on top of everything we already do, right? So security is really tough. So I think, a couple of things I would like to share, from a Google perspective. So Google has done a lot of research, and also we've been talking to customers and partners about, their concerns. Google recently, announced this thing in next 23. So that's last year, but it's kind of still evolving. But it's called Google Security AI Framework. So it's really a practitioner's guide to navigating AI security and provide as a tool for customers and partners to leverage and to think about AI risk and controls. But that's only one side of the the story, right? So I think definitely there will be there are some new security risks specific to Gen AI. But I think that the important thing here to know is that many of those the security controls and security capabilities and practices that we've covered here, in the talk, I think they are even more relevant in the new Gen AI context. Why? If you think about how Gen AI applications are developed and deployed in Google Cloud today, whether it's a SaaS, or it is a customer managed, LLM model in their own environment, it's always built on the same Google Cloud infrastructure that we see today. There will be more powerful chips, more better performing storage and networking and so on. But the same security principles and controls around those those building blocks are still the same. I would argue, like, for example, like networking controls, access control, threat detection capabilities. These are still some of the key security elements to make sure that we have to put them in place to make sure we are building a secure and scalable foundation for our customers, whether they are using Gen AI or not. I think that's the kind of the message that I'd like to highlight.
All right, and Tony, bring us home.
I think the one thing that we can offer to our customers, and one of the things that I think we really take to heart here, is that, quite honestly, the attackers are getting very, very sophisticated, right? So I think in the combination of the partnership and being able to leverage a lot of the technologies that David spoke about, and the more integrations that we have with Google that are coming down the pipeline, the better chance that we have to deliver a more secured network for our customers, right? That's really what I see is the core competency of us, is being able to make sure that when you're delivering in public cloud, when you're delivering on your on-prem and in public cloud, we want to make sure that we give you all of the proper security controls to be able to execute that in a manner that your data, your confidential information, whatever you want to say, is as protected as possible on that side, right? And we have to mature with that, and we want to make sure that we have. And I think I gave a good example of that already, right? Where web application and the API protection is now as important as just web application. And so that's kind of the key. So my goal, and I think as a company, our goal is that as we do these further partnerships with Google, being able to make sure that we're giving them the same level of security or better level of security as the attackers get even more and more sophisticated is going to be the win for our clients, right? Is to be able to make sure that they can do that. So again, I don't want my customers to have to go out and read through 50 and 100 pages of whatever they're doing. But what I want to do is make it so that within top of all the other jobs that they have, they can execute a security posture within the cloud that really gives them the ability to say at night, hey, I'm going to sleep tonight, not worried that my beeper is going to go off because we have an incident or something else like that, right? So I think if we could offer anything to any of our customers whatsoever, is that I would like to offer some more of the security folks, maybe an extra hour of sleep. That's what my goal is when it comes to that. I just want to make sure that they get a little extra hour of sleep, because I've been on the other side, and it's nothing worse than getting a call at 2 a.m. and then getting up for work at 5 or 6 a.m., right? So that's what we want to do. We want to offer our customers more sleep.
A little bit of confidence goes a long way in helping you sleep at night. Quality of sleep. Absolutely. Well, thank you both. And thanks to our sponsors, Fortinet and Google, for making today's webcast possible. Thank you, David and Tony, for this great discussion that we've had here today. And finally, big thanks to the audience for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me.